The first thing I want to do is install the backplate for our CPU cooler. I'm going to be showing you how to install it on an Intel motherboard with an LGI 1700 socket. So that means we need to make sure we pulled all these clips on the end to their outer setting. If you're installing it on an Intel motherboard with an LGI 1200 socket, you're going to want to make sure you push all these in towards the middle so they line up with the holes on the back of the motherboard. Then it's just a simple matter of lining the bracket up with the holes and it will fall into place. And then we've got one of these spacers to go into each corner. The thicker end screws into the back plate. We're now ready to start work on our AIO, and the first thing to do is set our fans onto the radiator. Now importantly, we're going to want to have these cables coming out towards the back. So I've already lined this up in the case and this is going to be the back. And then we're going to use the long radiator screws that come with the AIO to secure the fans to the radiator. Okay, next thing to do is get the cables connected up. So we've got a long cable coming from our first fan. We can line it up with our second fan and push into place. And then same thing with the next fan, line the cables up and push into place. We then get this adapter cable with the fan. So it's just a matter of pushing it into place on our last fan. On the other end of the cable, we've got two different connectors. We've got a 4-pin PWM connector, which we're going to plug into our CPU fan header, allowing our motherboard to not only power the fans, but adjust the speed depending on the CPU temperature. The other cable is a 3-pin 5-volt ARGB cable, and this is going to control the lighting on the fans. Now we can plug this into an ARGB header on our motherboard. Alternatively, because our case has an ARGB hub, we can plug it directly into the ARGB hub. Now, coming from this cable, we've also got an additional ARGB splitter cable, so we can plug in another ARGB device, and then we're going to be able to control the ARGB effects on the lighting, plus something else from this cable. So if we take a look at our pump, this is going to be quite useful, because coming from our pump, we've got another 3-pin 5-volt ARGB cable controlling the lighting on the pump. So we can plug it into that adapter cable, and that's just going to be the one ARGB cable that we need to plug into either our motherboard or our case's ARGB controller. The other cable coming from the pump is another 4-pin PWM connector, which is going to control the pump, power the pump, but also allow us to adjust the pump speed. And we're going to plug that into the pump header on our motherboard. Our AIO also comes with this very nice PWM and ARGB controller, which you are going to be able to plug into your motherboard for both PWM and ARGB control. Because our case actually has a built-in ARGB and PWM controller, it doesn't make sense to install two, so that's why I'm installing the AIO the way I am. Next, we're going to need to install the bracket for attaching to our motherboard so we can remove the plastic protection from the cold plate, taking care not to damage the thermal paste on the cold plate. Then we can take one of the Intel mounting brackets and set it into place from underneath. And then we can take one of the screws from the accessory box and pop it into place. And then one on the other side. And then it's exactly the same thing up at the top. And then we can return the plastic protection to the cold plate. We can then set the AIO into place at the top of the case. Then we're going to secure it into place with 12 of the shorter radiator screws. And then we can replace the top dust filter. I'm then going to pass the cable coming from the fans through to the back of the case. Our CPU fan header is this one just to the left of our RAM. So I'm going to go ahead and bring the PWM connector coming from that cable on the fans back through, line it up with the header, and push into place, and then pull the excess cable through to the back. The other connector coming from that cable is our ARGB connector, and of course we could plug this into an ARGB header on our motherboard, but we do have this ARGB hub already built into the case, so I'm going to install it here. If you need a little bit of extra stretch, you can just pull the cable here to free up the PWM and the ARGB cable. So all we're going to need to do is pull the plastic protectors off the headers on the hub. We then just simply need to line the ARGB cable up with the hub. Next, we can remove the plastic protection from the cold plate. And just before we set this into place, I want to show you how I like to manage the cables coming up the AIO. So this is going to be the bottom, and the two cables that are coming up, I just like to wrap around the side of the AIO, so they're going to be nicely managed up the side when we're installing it. We then just need to line the AIO up with the bracket beneath, and then we've got a thumb screw to go onto each corner. And then I'm just going to tighten each of the thumb screws in turn. We can then remove the plastic protection from the pump, and you'll notice that the logo on the pump is rotatable. I'm then going to pass the cables coming from the pump through to the back of the case. Our pump header is just here, so we're going to bring the PWM cable back through. We can line it up with the pump header and push into place and then pull the excess cable through to the back. The ARGB cable then coming from our pump, we can simply plug into the other end of the cable coming from our fans. So a couple of extra things to tell you about the AIO. If you've installed it with your tubes in a different position and you want to rotate this round, this is magnetically attached, so it's just a matter of getting your nail in here and you can pull the little plate off, and then you could install it up the other way had you got this turned upside down. But we'll put it back, it was the correct way for us originally. And we've got this additional plate with a slightly different logo in with the AIO as well. The other thing that comes with the AIO is these tube clips. So we wanted to help organize our cables. It would just be a matter of pushing these onto the tubes to help keep them organized.